Thank you.
Next is the Honorable Joseph H. Goldberg of Norwich. Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Afternoon.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please have a seat. Welcome, and we'd be happy to have any opening statement.
All right. My name's Joseph Goldberg. I've born and raised in Norwich and still reside in the city of Norwich. I'm a graduate of Yale University and Harvard Law School, and I had the opportunity and privilege of serving on the Board of Trustees of what I consider the greatest high school in the state of Connecticut, Norwich Free Academy. I know some people in London might object to that as a classification, but I have my personal opinion in that regard. In addition, I have served as senator from the 19th District 52 years ago, and I also had the privilege of serving the General Assembly as Legislative Commissioner for a term of 6.5 years. I have now been a judge. Now it's in my 37th year, and this is my 7th appearance before the Judiciary Committee, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. And I'm sorry, when were you in the General Assembly?
1957 to 58.
It's changed a little bit since then, right?
It's changed drastically. This building wasn't here, and often the salary at the time was $300 a year, $600.
Not much more than that now, Your Honor.
It was $600 for the 2-year term.
And after you take off the givebacks, just like the judges have done, it's even less. Well, thank you very much, Your Honor. And you currently sit in what docket? What are you mostly handling?
I'm primarily sitting on family business today. Divorce, custody, alimony, division of assets, custody modification, relocation cases, things of that nature.
How many? What are you seeing in terms of the increase or decrease in the volume of modifications to divorce decrees?
Well, as far as modifications, the economy would have a great effect on that. In terms of the total volume of business, where I'm down in New London County, and we have the 2 casinos down there, and that has increased the amount of business that we have in the courts, particularly with regard on the family side. We have a tremendous increase in the volume of family cases.
I'm sorry, I guess I'm not getting the connection. What's the connection between the casinos and the increase in family cases?
Well, we have a lot more people. The 2 casinos employ more than 20,000 people.
Okay.
And by virtue of the additional volume, and we have a number of cases from people who work at the casinos.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't misunderstanding you, that there's a higher divorce rate among casino employees than in the rest of the...
Not necessarily, but it just increases the total volume.
Your Honor, I've heard from some judges who do family cases that there's a large increase of the number of pro se litigants.
Oh, yes, very much so.
What would you, not holding you to it, but what would your estimate be about the percentage of cases that you have that have pro se litigants before you?
I would say it's more than 50%. We have in London County, every Thursday, we have a family docket of uncontested cases, and we average between 20 and 25 every Thursday, and of that, I would say at least 15 are pro se representations.
And the judge I was speaking to thought that the percentage was approximately 75 or 80%.
It could be higher.
In that judge's court.
It could be higher.
So I ask you because my perception, again, I don't do family work, but my perception is that the time and attention that each one of those cases takes from you as a judge is increased when they're unrepresented parties. Is that true?
It definitely is, because the judge has to conduct the interrogation, basically, of the witnesses that take the stand. It does increase the time. The reason for it, many of them say it's the cost. They can't afford counsel, and therefore they come in on their own.
And I am in the southwestern part of the state, but in your neck of the woods, to the extent you can generalize here, what would the quote-unquote average cost be for attorney's fees in a divorce case?
Oh, it's
a hard question, I know.
That's very difficult. But I see many financial affidavits where I've seen attorney's fees that are skyrocketing. I mean, that $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in some cases, and then not big asset cases. That's where I'm astounded to see the size of the fees in some of the cases.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Your Honor. Are there any questions? Representative Gonzalez.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon.
I was checking your questionnaire, and it's unbelievable because I never thought that I was going to check a questionnaire and check question number 25, and it was going to be clean.
What's the 24?
25, and you pass the test. It's clean. I was surprised that, usually, most of the time, the judges, have 1, 2, 3, or whatever complaints, but you are completely clean. So congratulations.
Well, thank you very kindly.
Thank you.
That's the nicest question I've had today. Yeah.
Thank you, and thank you, Your Honor. And this may be the second nicest question you've had today, but I just want to thank you for your service. It's wonderful to see you here from representing the great city of Norwich, and I appreciate all that you've done for us here at the legislature and the judiciary, and also in the city of Norwich. So thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Senator Gomes.
I want to thank you for the remark I see here. You were in the Marines in 1943?
Yes, correct.
Oh, boy. As a vet myself, I admired that.
I went up to my senior year of high school. It was my 17th birthday. I went up to enlist at that time. That was a long time ago. A long time ago.
Is there anything further? Representative Hewitt has a comment apparently about the Norwich Free Academy.
Just a comment. Who won the last game between New London?
I have to concede on that one. New London High, they won, but...
You hear that, Bud, right? You know what Bud means in a sentence, right? Just disregard everything I just said. Well, anyway, congratulations.
Thank you very much, Representative Hewitt.
Is there anything further? If not, thank you very much, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you.
Next is the Honorable John M. Alander of Hamden, followed by the Honorable Richard A. Damiani of New Haven. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please have a seat. Welcome, Judge.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Senator McDonald, Senator Kissel, members of the Judiciary Committee. It's an honor to be here addressing you this afternoon. I appreciate the opportunity to be heard on my renomination. I want to thank Governor Rell for renominating me for a third term as a Superior Court judge. As an aside, I must say I have no idea how I reached the age at which I could have served as a judge for 16 years, but here I am. I remember my first appearance before this committee 16 years ago as if it was yesterday. Since the date of my reappointment before you last, 8 years ago, I've had a wide variety of judicial assignments. I first served as the presiding judge for civil matters in the Ansonia-Milford Judicial District. I served in that capacity for 2 years. I then served for 3 years on the complex litigation docket in Waterbury. After that assignment, I spent 1 year as the presiding judge for family matters for the Fairfield Judicial District. I then served 2 years in Waterbury, presiding over Part A criminal trials, and I am currently serving in the New Haven Judicial District, also presiding over Part A criminal trials. During my tenure as a judge, I've also had the privilege of serving on a number of judicial committees, including the Rules Committee of the Superior Court, the Judicial Education Committee, the Public Access Task Force, the Civil Commission, and the Family Commission. It has been a privilege and a distinct honor to serve as a Superior Court judge for 16 years. And hopefully, with your approval, I will continue to serve the people of Connecticut in that capacity. Thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. You heard, I suppose, my prior questions to some of the other nominees. I'd like to get your view of the status of resources that are being made available to the branch, particularly in New Haven and Part A, and the number of marshals and tax and interpreters, court monitors. Could you tell us a little bit about what you're experiencing?
Certainly. Let me first say that the Chief Justice and the Chief Court Administrator have done yeoman work in trying to insulate the trial judge from these cuts. Unfortunately, the cuts have been so deep that it has, in fact, had an impact on my work, for example. With respect to courtroom security, as I said, I serve in New Haven, and if you've been in a number of the courtrooms in New Haven, they're very small. The defendant in a criminal case can literally reach out and touch the public gallery, and he or she's probably 10 feet from the door. And so security is particularly important in a tight courtroom like that. And while criminal certainly has marshals, it's a priority, there are cases when I feel like I could use additional courtroom marshals for particular cases, but they're simply not available. Secondly, with respect to interpreters, I on occasion go over to the GA in New Haven and fill in, and we often have to wait for interpreters. There are often only one Spanish-speaking interpreter for the entire building, and so that interpreter may be serving another judge in another courtroom, and so we have to wait before we can serve Spanish-speaking defendants or victims or families for that interpreter to make it to our courtroom. Last but not least, I fear the closing of libraries, frankly. While much of what we have for research is available online, not everything is. Another thing I have is a responsibility is civil short calendar. We do that on Mondays in New Haven. And just last week I had to use the library to look at treatises, the restatement on torts, that's not available online. If I were serving in Milford and that library gets closed, I wouldn't have that treatise available to me. I'd either have to travel to get it or ask that it be sent to me, and then some other judge would be looking for it while I had it. So it has an impact. It's not been such a serious impact that it's prevented us from doing our job, but it certainly does at times make it more difficult.
Now, forgive me, the New Haven Library is one of the libraries.
It's going to remain open, is my understanding.
It's remaining open?
Yes.
Okay.
So at least to date.
Right, yeah, exactly. Stay tuned. The number of marshals that you have available to you, understanding that it's a priority for criminal, my understanding is statewide the system is down approximately 250 marshals from what the branch has determined it would be the optimal level. Are you seeing those shortages affecting the flow of business?
Not in criminal. I mean, I have 2 marshals in my courtroom whenever I have a trial, and usually that's sufficient. But there have been cases where I've had defendants who have a history of having been violent, who are before me on a case that involves a claim of violence, where I'm not always sure 2 marshals is sufficient. It has not been a problem. I've only been in New Haven now since September, and I hope it will never become a problem, but I can foresee a time when it might.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Are there any questions? Senator Kissel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Judge Alander, great to see you.
Thank you.
Time does march by quickly. My first year on this committee was when you were first nominated, and I've been ranking when you came back 8 years ago, and here you are again. You spoke about how the state's financial situation is impacting your ability to mete out justice and work within the judicial branch, but my question has to do with the constituents and the public that you serve. And I'm sure because I saw you've been here all afternoon.
I have.
My question to Judge Bishop regarding what things that this recession is bringing before the courts, and is it impacting small solo practitioners, small firms? Is there a higher incidence of pro ses? Is it the kinds of cases that you're hearing are distinctly different, and is there real pain in this state that maybe you're seeing that you didn't see 5 years ago or 6 years ago?
Well, the last 3 years I've been sitting doing criminal trials, and there's always a steady flow of business, unfortunately, as it relates to criminal trials, so I may not be the best person to address that issue. I'm sure that family cases have increased as a result of the economic downturn, but I haven't seen it directly myself, given my nature of the assignments that I've had recently.
Okay, given the fact that your experience recently is on the criminal side, in the advent of the Cheshire homicides, which are yet to even go to trial, and other major crimes that happened after that, and this legislature's ability to come to grips with reforms, addressing the need to have better exchange of information from all the way at the outset, the making sure that there's pre-sentence investigation information provided at the tail end when folks are being reviewed for possibility of parole, and all of those things. We initiated a variety of reforms trying to make the system more accountable and more effective, and at the same time being balanced. Since you have been in that role for the last 3 years, how have you seen it play out, if at all, and what areas may we need to revisit as we move forward as a state?
In terms of the flow of information specifically, or I guess I'm not quite sure I understand the question.
Sure. I mean, we grappled with the whole criminal justice system issue in great detail. I'm hoping that it has created some kind of impact when cases eventually come before you to be tried. If there's been absolutely no impact whatsoever, that actually raises a red flag for me.
But there's certainly been much more emphasis in terms of at sentencing, articulating on the record the nature of the crime, the reasons why you made the sentence that you made, because we all know that it's important that the Department of Corrections receive that information, that the Pardon Board receive that information. So I think we're much more conscious that we need to be clear and make a record of why we're doing what we're doing so that information can be passed on. And I'm sure that was a direct result of your legislation and the emphasis that's been placed upon that flow of information by the legislature, and it's clearly been made aware to trial judges that it's important that we do that.
And my last question has to do with racial and ethnic disparity, especially as it pertains to our criminal justice system. And I know that a couple of years ago, I think it is now, that Senator Coleman and myself were on a subcommittee looking into that and trying to find out, why Connecticut seems to have a disproportionate number of folks of color in our correction system, and how does that translate? And I'm just wondering, from your perspective, is there anything Connecticut's doing right regarding these issues? Is there anything Connecticut's doing wrong? Are you simply in a point where these matters are now before you, you're making determinations based on the evidence as objectively as possible, and you really don't have any insights? But I'm guessing that perhaps you're seeing something that perhaps we, sitting here in the Legislative Office Building, don't have an opportunity to see on a daily basis. Well,
certainly as a judge, you take each case on its merits. But, and this goes back a ways in my tenure as a judge, but during my second term as a Superior Court judge, I sat in juvenile court in New Haven. And it struck me that the clientele on the delinquency side in juvenile court was overwhelmingly minority, black and Hispanic, in the New Haven area. And I wasn't seeing kids from Woodbridge, from Orange, from Bethany. And it struck me that those communities were dealing with their issues around juvenile justice in a way that didn't involve the juvenile courts, whether it was a medical issue or a community service issue or a youth bureau issue. Those kids weren't making it to juvenile court. They weren't being treated as delinquents. But for some reason in the minority community they were. and I never quite understood what services were being provided in the suburban towns that would avoid bringing those cases to juvenile court. But clearly, there was disparate treatment in that regard. That was very stark.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your candor on that issue. I think that's part of what's motivated myself and many of my colleagues regarding the raise the age issue, but also my recollection when Senator Coleman and I went out and did some outreach and tried to find out what's going on. Sometimes it simply comes down to the fact that there's an arrest made and one police department notifies the parents and goes out of its way to try to get that young person off that track, so that at the end of the day they're not sitting in a cell going before the criminal justice system, that they've already been taken out of that track and sent into counseling or sent into some sort of other treatment program or moved out. And unfortunately, in particular in our urban areas where there may not be the resources, but even above and beyond that may not be that effort at that early stage to try to get that young person out of that criminal justice track. And that may just be changing the focus of how justice is meted out. It's an intractable problem. There's not one single touchstone that we can turn around and change. But I think my belief is this, and I'll get off my soapbox when I'm done. We have an aging population. We're in the Northeast where it's very, very difficult economically. We lead the country in the number of 18 to 36-year-olds that leave our state. When you add all of that up, and I've spoken about this at symposiums and different places, I don't think we as a state can afford to lose as many young people as we do. I think it's a question of survival. And for every young person that we can turn around and break that cycle of recidivism, A, we have less victimization, and B, we have tax-paying citizens that can help us survive. And so I think it's an issue that we have to constantly revisit, and I appreciate your insights regarding it because I think we still have a very long way to go. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Are there other questions? Representative O'Neill?
Good afternoon.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know who he recognized.
We have that problem sometimes, too. So,
it's the problem with a circle.
Well, actually, yeah, because in the House of Representatives, everybody's in this amphitheater and the circle. They kind of get confused up in the Senate. That's probably not what you were referring to.
It certainly wasn't.
Your reference to the closure of the libraries and the issue that and in the Appropriations Committee, some folks came who were involved with library. I can't remember the exact titles. One was, I think, a retired judicial librarian, and the other one was someone who's in Connecticut Association of Librarians or something. And they were recommending, instead of closing the libraries in order to save the same amount of money, just not updating the services as a way to save, and I forget the number, but it was a number less than $1 million. I think it was like $900,000 or something. Do you think that would be better instead of just closing, which I assume means locking the doors? I'm not sure what they're going to do with the books, but would it be better to just terminate, temporarily at least suspend the services, which apparently has been done in the past?
I think it would be worse than not closing a library. Because if I go to the library, if I don't know whether it's updated or not, I don't know if I'm using the most current treatise or not. I just don't know how you have a judicial system and not have law libraries. I just don't know how you can expect judges to do their job if they don't have the latest treatises and legal materials available to them.
Okay. So, all right. I had that same thought. It's dangerous to walk into a library that's 5 years out of date thinking that it's today's date.
It doesn't do me much good, a treatise that's out of date.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Gonzalez?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Judge.
Good afternoon.
If you have a case in front of you in your court and you friend of the defendant or the plaintiff, are you supposed to recuse yourself?
If you're a friend? Certainly.
Can you explain about the case here in 2002, 2001?
2001, yes. I've had 3 grievances against me in 16 years, 2 by the same individual. That was, in 2001, I presided over a vigorously contested, and the only grievances I had have been when I sat family. I had a party in a family case. It was a vigorously contested divorce action. When I ruled in a way that I guess he didn't find favor with, he appealed, which is certainly his right. I was then affirmed by the appellate court. He then filed a grievance against me, which was dismissed. He then filed a federal lawsuit against me, claiming damages because of how I dealt with his divorce. That was dismissed. He then filed a second grievance against me, which was also dismissed. He basically ran out of ammunition, I guess. And what you're referring to is one of the claims that he made in a grievance against me was that I was, quote, unquote, a friend of the real estate appraiser that was presented in the case. And what had occurred was, he even may have called that appraiser, but anyway, there was an appraiser who was a witness. When that appraiser was sworn in, I indicated to the parties that I knew the individual, that his daughter and my son went to the same high school. Though I didn't know the man personally, I did know that my son ran cross country and his daughter ran cross country, and so they knew each other. I made that clear to the parties and asked anybody if they had any concerns. Both lawyers indicated they did not. I then continued on and ruled in the case. So I was certainly not a friend of the real estate appraiser, but my son did know his daughter, and so I disclosed that.
Okay, and the other question is, you know that usually on these meetings, everybody's tense. I think that every judge that is going to be sitting, in that chair is kind of tense. So sometimes we have to, a little joke here and there. And my question is, with a joke, you don't look that bad. Very, very strict and very serious. But why you omit your age here? You don't look that bad, Judge.
Wait. I have a funny story. When I was sitting in juvenile court, I came out on the bench and there was a mother and father sitting there, and I heard the father turn to the mother and whisper, "This judge looks a lot meaner than the last judge we had." And the judge they had before me was Judge Clarence Jones. I don't know if any of you know Judge Jones, but he is an extremely peaceful demeanor, and anyone would look meaner than him. So I didn't feel so bad once I learned that.
And your age, finally?
My age is 56.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Sounds young to me.
Yeah, right. It's all relative. I have an 18-year-old son, so I'm way over the hill.
Are there other questions, members of the committee? I just had a few, Judge. First of all, congratulations on your renomination. And I missed your initial presentation, but I understand you're sitting now in Part A in New Haven in the criminal cases. Is that right?
Correct.
And as you know, there's a fair amount of concern here at the legislature about the effect that the budget crisis is having on the judicial branch and the court's ability to function, and the effect of the early retirement program compounded by the hiring freeze, et cetera. So I just, since you're dealing on a day-to-day basis with the realities, and granted this is not the sort of busier of the criminal courts measured by number of cases you're dealing with, but still, I'm just curious if you've noticed any impact from all the various side effects of the budget crisis.
Right. I feel like I should play the replay button. I think when you were out, Representative Lawler, I was asked this question by Senator McDonald.
Well, he told me he asked very general questions.
Oh, you want specifically with respect to criminal?
Well, yeah, with criminal.
Well, I indicated that I had some concern with the availability of sufficient marshals in the courtroom, given the closeness of the courtroom that I'm presently sitting in. It's a very tight space, and I have some concerns in that area. And I've also talked generally about the loss of law libraries concerns me, as well as interpreters in the GA. Other than that, as I indicated earlier, the judicial administration has really done a wonderful job, given the depth of the cuts that we've been facing, as I understand them, to ensure that the core services of the branch remain as unaffected as possible. But we're starting to feel the pain. The judge on the bench in the courtroom is starting to see a difference. And it's not dramatic, and my hope is it doesn't become dramatic.
And I take it for the most part you're doing trials sort of back-to-back, is that it?
Correct.
And one of the concerns I've heard expressed is that the resources that are available in terms of sentencing, probation, different supervision options, halfway houses. Do you have?
I have not seen a problem with that yet. I mean, PSIs come very late, they try to get them to you 24 hours before the sentencing. That's cutting it a little close in my mind, and I'm sure that's a result of insufficient staff. It would be nice to have it a lot earlier. But I haven't yet seen a dramatic impact on the options available to me at sentencing.
And how is it, I know you're in the same courthouse where this very high-profile trial is taking place now. Are there extra precautions being taken in terms of screening people coming into the building altogether?
Yeah, they have metal detectors leading into the courtroom, Judge Blue's courtroom. There are metal detectors. There's a much more visible security presence around that trial for the obvious reason.
And is that having a direct impact on the flow of business in your own courtroom, or the?
Not as of yet, no.
Okay. And, it was brought to our attention that most judges, I think almost all judges, did the same thing that many legislators and all state employees have done in terms of furloughs and giving back concessions or money.
I guess ours is may. I don't know if yours is shall. But certainly there's been an understanding on the part of judges that we have an obligation to do our part with respect to the budget deficit, and we've been asked to give 3 furlough days, 1 furlough day last year and 3 furlough days this year. I have no idea what the participation rate is as of yet. I've taken 1 furlough day so far this term, and I plan on taking the other 2 before the year is out.
I got it. Okay. Well, thanks for doing that. I know, as is the case with legislators, we're not obligated to do it, but I think virtually everyone has done something along those lines.
And I did take my furlough day last year.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Judge. Are there any other questions? If not, thank you once again.